should a government be allowed to enforce mandates, vaccinations on her populace?
I mean, we're supposed to wear pants in public, and we're generally, I think, okay with that mandate.
Yeah, because like it's literally a law. You have to not have, public indecency is a thing. It's a crime, and so.
Haven't tested the theory?
And I saw I saw someone raise that as an argument in support of these mandates, and I understand where they're coming from with the logic, but I also would love to kind of dive in together here. Like, what is the dent in that logic? Like, why doesn't that work?
This episode of the Awaken Catholic Men's Show is sponsored by Select International Tours. We've got 2 tours coming up, a river cruise in Paris, as well as a pilgrimage to the Holy Lands. You can find information at selectinternationaltours.com/awaken. Hey, thanks for being here. We'll see you there. Okay, gentlemen, I think we're ready. We're all nice and warmed up.
Let's do it.
Rob, are you going to introduce our first topic for the evening?
Isn't like a triune topic?
What?
The topic? Tell me if I have the topic right.
Sounds good.
We are going to talk about masks, vaccines, and mandates.
Yes.
So first, I'd like to say, I think we could all, spend more time in male friendship. So I am all for mandates.
I see what you did there.
I just don't think we spend enough time together. The more mandates, the better.
So you like vaccine mandates? Like where we go together to get a vaccine? Is that the kind of mandates that you're talking about?
I don't.
That just sounds weird.
I think we need to, yeah.
Can you have a beer afterwards? Is that?
Anyway, so the topic we're going to talk about today is masks, vaccines, and mandates. We recently had a bunch of mandates come out from the president and the federal government, and
Pete talked about them.
Everybody's talking about it. There's all sorts of feelings. There's certainly sides of the fence and everywhere in between on these subjects, and that's what we're supposed to talk about tonight.
Good introduction, Rob.
A lot of people have been asking me, like, what do we do?
Wait, time out.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, Pete, what do we do?
Yeah.
Like they're looking to you to have the answers.
Someone came to my office today and they're upset about it. They're frustrated by it. I'm very frustrated by a mandate for employers with 100 employees or over will have to receive the vaccine or have to take and get a test every single week so that they can prove that they're negative. So there's so much at play as far as all right, the current pandemic we're in, COVID-19, the Delta variant that we're experiencing, and then just the principal question, should a government be allowed to enforce mandates, vaccinations on her populace? And so there's a lot of different ways we could kind of go with it or whatever. We could build our way up, start with the mask thing that's going on and stuff if we want to first. But
because a question there, right, obviously is we certainly let the governments mandate some things. We have laws. We're supposed to wear. Can't hear me at all?
You sound very far away.
I am very far away. Is it okay? Well,
Is he working now?
I mean, we're supposed to wear pants in public. Okay. And we're generally, I think, okay with that mandate. But so it's not an issue of mandates per se, but an issue of at what level, at what point is there a line crossed where this is too much, this is too invasive, this gets too close to the sovereignty of the individual or the family or the locality? And that's sort of one of the questions here is, do pants cross the line? Do masks cross the line? Do vaccines cross the line?
And who determines that and why?
Yeah, where's that line?
Yeah, because it's literally a law. You have to not have, public indecency is a thing. It's a crime, and so.
Haven't tested the theory?
And I saw I saw someone raise that as an argument in support of these mandates, and I understand where they're coming from with the logic, but I also would love to kind of dive in together here. Like, what is the dent in that logic? Like, why doesn't that work?
Right. So I mean that's a thought experiment in one direction. Like we're all okay with pants as a mandate. but certainly we could probably come up with some hypothetical other extreme where none of us are on board, right? Like if the government mandated, I mean, fill in the blank with the ridiculous thing that you would not be cool with the government mandating.
Right.
So we've got our two boundaries. The question is, what is the line in the middle?
Well, yeah. What's our ridiculous thing? Ridiculous scenario.
Well, the state of Australia right now, like they arrested a group of teenagers because they went outside at sunset. Like you're not allowed outside the house at a certain point if you're at a certain age. Like they have a total lockdown in that country right now. They're tracing everybody. And so they're a Western democracy, which has accepted kind of some totalitarian measures in the idea of safety. And I think sometimes it's like you mentioned like, can we find the middle here? And I think it is important to find the middle. But sometimes the extremes on one end or the other is actually the right thing to do. So the question is like, does the current situation with a virus that for many age groups, I mean, the survival rate is 98%, 99% for the majority of age groups. That's what it is. Unless you have some comorbidity factors, you're older, you're overweight, you have asthma, things of that nature. Is this a scenario where we can say, well, yeah, everybody should be wearing masks to protect those people. Everyone should be wearing, or everyone should be getting the vaccine. And are those things themselves, are they actually efficacious to keeping people safe? So, President Biden came out just yesterday and he said, like, what are you waiting for? Mm-hmm. And, personally as a Catholic, I'm waiting for a vaccine that's developed not using aborted fetal cells at all. So there isn't ethical connections are tied, even though the church has said it's morally illicit to take it because of the conditions of the pandemic. But two, I'm also just waiting for a couple more years of study based upon what the individuals who are pushing these mandates have said in the past and how they haven't been consistent and how they've actually, quite frankly, lied before Congress and to the American people about what they have or have not been doing in the midst of all of this. So it makes it really hard for me to trust the public authorities that are saying, yeah, we definitely need to have this mandate, particularly when the vaccine itself, it doesn't stop you from getting. I'm hearing it's scary.
Gotta replay that.
But no, you're good. I think what's tough for me is the vaccine itself right now. It doesn't actually stop you from getting the sickness. It lessens your symptoms, which is a good thing. And so far, what we've seen is it's proven to do just that. It will lessen your symptoms, which is great. It's awesome, and praise God for that, because that'll keep some people from dying. But it's not keeping you from transmitting the disease to other people, including the unvaccinated. So the story we're being pushed a lot is that this is a pandemic now of the unvaccinated. When if you're actually unvaccinated, if you get sick that you shouldn't go outside your home. You shouldn't be talking with other people. But if you're vaccinated and you've got some symptoms, that you may just common cold. So you go out and you actually end up spreading the virus. So in this circumstance, for those practical reasons, I say this is a government overreach based upon what we know about the actual virus. There could be some circumstances trying to think of another large, the Spanish flu, which was much more deadly. Could we argue during the Spanish flu that we would be comfortable with the government mandating a vaccine for the general populace for their protection?
Would you be on board with that?
I would still feel really uncomfortable about it, but I think it would be more digestible to even begin the conversation.
Because there's sliding scales here. There's sort of like, you'd think that that objectively there'd be some line that would never be okay to cross. Right, it would never be okay for the government to mandate something that is actually evil, like to mandate abortion or something like that. To mandate something that in itself is not just
like what China has done with the one-child policy.
Right.
And
that's always out evil. It doesn't matter the circumstances. There's no circumstances that would make it okay for the government to mandate something evil. Now, to get a vaccine is obviously not evil, but the question is, does it still fall somewhere in the spectrum of things where, even if things really are as bad as some people think they are, would it then become okay for the government to mandate something like that? And again, so there's sliding scales that have to be kind of evaluated against each other here.
Well, and this is really sacrosanct too, because this goes to the heart of the pro-choice argument, my body, my choice, which I tend to agree with in the context your body, if you don't have this, if you can't make the decisions about what you do or do not do with your body, that's a dangerous place if the government is telling somebody what to do. Now, that argument falls short because there ends up being another body involved in the abortion decision. So you come back and you can say, well, during this pandemic, there's other bodies involved, and so we do have to care for the common good. Is this Does this meet the criteria that it's a good thing, it's a charitable thing? And where the church has landed on this, from our Holy Father on down, is that really they've been encouraging the vaccine. This is for the common good. It's a charitable act. I think we're missing the boat a little bit as far as what we've been emphasizing, and this doesn't meet the threshold, at least for my own conscience, as I've read the church documents and stuff, as far as whether or not we should be taking this vaccine. I mean, the church teaches that vaccination is not morally obligatory in principle, and so must be voluntary. I mean, that's what they say about every vaccine, period. It's what the church teaches. So how we've gotten to this point where now it's like, it's an act of charity, and in fact, if you're not getting it, you don't care for the common good. Like, whoa, wait a minute, where did that come from? Because that's not what I've been reading as far as our church documents for the past 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and someone I care about a lot, someone very close to me, had COVID like a month ago, and when they went to the ER, they were treated like second-rate citizens because they weren't vaccinated.
I've seen a lot of cases of that.
There was just this very blatant attitude towards them, it was very sad.
Did you see Jimmy Kimmel the other night? He's on TV saying they shouldn't get treated. And I mean, you have people in the media saying if you're not vaccinated, you shouldn't get treated. In no other illness or disease do we treat people that way. Oh, you're fat, we're not going to treat you for your diabetes, or something of that nature. It's like, wait a minute, if you're a smoker, we're not going to treat you for lung cancer. You shouldn't have been smoking. No, you treat everybody no matter what. But somehow we've gotten to this narrative in this country where they're trying to divide us so much that the vaccinated are getting angry at the unvaccinated. And for me, as someone who's unvaccinated, if you choose to get vaccinated, blessed be God, you form your conscience, you've made that choice. I'll support you in that. I don't think you made the right choice, but I'm not going to tell you that you're evil or a bad person for doing that. Yet that's exactly what I'm being told because I haven't been vaccinated. It's like, wait a minute, how do we get here? It's making me mad, Rob.
Yeah, Rob. Yeah, Rob.
Yeah, Rob.
Whoa, guys. Whoa.
You see what you did?
It's all your fault.
What have I done?
What do you think? What you think?
Gosh, it just seems so complicated. And I would agree with you, Pete, in just the way that people have treated each other in general has just been sad. And we've seen that through a lot of things in the past few years. And just that respect and charity towards the other human person and the dignity that they have no matter what. I do think people draw different conclusions. Everyone processes information differently. Some people may be more comfortable with how the vaccine was developed. They may say, well, we went from basically, bad example, but they may be more comfortable. Some people will walk into a situation and say, oh, it's fine, I'll buy that. Other people will hem and haw for about 4 or 5 years about a thing. Right. There's definitely dispositions that go into being, comfortable with making decisions and trying to make the right decision. But the charity towards other people has been awful in many respects. And I just think, more listening to other people is necessary. I guess that's what I think. I agree on that.
If we move away from vaccinations per se, I mean, the government called for a 2-week window to flatten the curve, to stay in our homes and stuff. I mean, what responsibility do we have if our governmental authorities, who we're called to respect and listen to, I mean, that's a very biblical principle, to listen to the rulers that God has placed above you in the realm of, if they're not making terribly immoral choices or anything of that nature, and to say if they believe to stay in your home is the best thing for the health and they're the experts, quote unquote, should we stay in our homes again? That's not an egregious ask in the context, as long as you're able to go to the grocery store and things of that nature. I mean, does that draw the line for us, or is that acceptable that we would accept something of that nature?
Is there that frog in the boiling pot scenario where the water is just gradually getting hotter and he never notices? And at what point do we say, wait a second, this isn't the United States anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've gotten to that point because, I mean, the government's been saying all along, and, again, just we have to use a concrete example. I mean, President Biden said as a candidate, we will not mandate vaccines. He said as recently as 2 weeks ago, the federal government's not going to mandate vaccines. Jen Psaki, his spokesperson, said that. 2 weeks later, the vaccines are here. We've been sitting in this boiling pot saying, oh, it's just one more step. It's just one more step. I mean, what is next? If it's going to be a company of 100 people, why not 90?
Well,
Why not 75?
and people have to understand that, like, we all kind of agree that the polarization in the country sucks, and that people being super suspicious at each other really sucks. But they also have to realize that that's we've created this scenario. You know, when you say things and then you flip flop over and over, like you create all the politicization of the last couple of years has created this scenario where, rightly or wrongly, people are like, how the heck am I supposed to believe you? Maybe I did 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but how can I just take this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, one thing I was thinking too when you were talking, Rob, is how the language around the vaccines, it's become so political. It sounds like when we were in, you know, the election season, in the sense of people saying, you know, you have to vote this particular way, and if you don't, it means X, Y, and Z about you and your intentions, and you're wrong and you're a bad person. And there was that same kind of pressure to, you know, who cares, you know, what you think about this or what your conscience tells you or what research you've done, whatever. No, this is the one right way for you to choose. And again, I think
that was me. I was.
Well, and we had lots of good conversations about that throughout the thing. But the point is that voting, I mean, like getting a vaccine, is a very personal thing, and we should be trying to inform people's consciences, sure. Mm-hmm. But in the end, like, that individual has to, with their conscience, go into the voting booth and make a decision. Like that's, and we need to be encouraging, you know, a freedom there and a responsibility, but not a pressure and a mandate and a you know, again, the kind of vitriol towards someone who doesn't see it the way that we do.
Yeah, and maybe I can say what I was a little more hesitant to say before to Pete. You know, I would be hard pressed. You know, I think it's a hard conclusion to draw, you know, that someone is wrong to get the vaccine, and vice. What's that?
I didn't say that.
That they didn't make the right choice, that they've made the wrong choice getting the vaccine. I think that's a hard conclusion to draw for another person.
But in fairness, he was saying, like, in his opinion, he feels that they might have made the wrong choice. But
therefore, you can say in my opinion all day. Anyway, I think it's a hard conclusion to draw, and vice versa for those who would say because you didn't get the vaccine, you have made the wrong choice. You know, I just think there's not a lot of, openness to people wrestling in that discernment and making a decision on something that, you know, like we see the science presented on all sides, and there's a lot to wrestle with.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that the trouble is, like, we're responsible for the knowledge that we have or we don't have. And I feel like the church has done a bad job, or just the society, the government, everybody's done a bad job of, like, actually spending time to research and to go deep into the vaccines, where they came from, where this virus has come from, the individuals in charge of our governmental decisions, and looking into these questions and making really good informed decisions. And I think we make the same mistake when it comes to voting in elections. Catholics in general don't take the time to really look at these issues, these candidates, and there's blind spots, and we just kind of ignore some issues that we should be paying attention to. I talked to a Catholic 2 months ago who was telling me that Joe Biden is pro-life. And I'm like, have you looked at any of his track record? Have you looked at the way he's voted? Have you looked at his statements? And he would not believe me that Joe Biden actually supports the abortion procedure. You said, well, no, he doesn't really. I'm like, he supports abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy. That's his stated public policy. And he said, no, that's not really true. I'm like, what do I got to do? You know, I can take you to the website. I can show you the Democratic Party platform. Like, at some point, we do have to, like, take responsibility as individuals to make the best choices possible. And I think some people in the vaccines or voting, like, we're not doing that. We're just settling to listening to the experts, when it's really incumbent upon us to do the research we have been doing.
Hey, you've made it this far through the Awaken Catholic Men's Show. This is sponsored by Select International Tours. You can find more information about the upcoming 2 tours to Paris and the Holy Lands at selectinternationaltours.com/awaken. And now, back to the show.
What do you think about, in terms of the moral licitness related to the use of aborted fetal cells and stuff? What do you think about, like, someone made an argument to me the other day that, like, I know doesn't resolve the issue, but to them it was like, here's how I make this work in my head. The idea that the babies weren't killed for the purpose of being used this way, but having been killed, it's like bringing some meaning to their death by using them to help people. This doesn't satisfy me at all, but I'm curious how you'd respond to that, guys.
Yeah, the first thing I would say.
Wouldn't.
I would defer to Pete.
Yeah, I mean, it's like eating fruit from the poison tree, right? I mean, the original act, the moral evil in this act is something so serious that the church, again, teaches that you have a general moral duty to refuse the use of any medical product, including certain vaccines that are produced using human cells derived from direct abortions. Okay, again, that's directly from church documents and teachings. Like, we recognize that this is a terrible moral thing that happened. An example that I like to use to help people understand or appreciate, I mean, imagine if, during the Rwandan genocide, one of the groups of people just murdered the other group of people, and they're like, let's go ahead and experiment on their body. And they did, and they preserved some of those cells, and we still use those cells today for the advancement of medical products. I would be like, I don't want any part of that there. But that's exactly what we've done with abortion. And it doesn't really register for us because abortion is so part of our culture. It's so a part of who we are as a society. We're just kind of used to these things. I mean, the fact that the University of Pittsburgh has taken baby scalps and is placing them on rats just to see what will happen when we do that. Aborted fetus scalps, we cut them off, and then we put them on rats, and we say, oh, let's see what happens. Like, and there's not an outrage about it. There's no comeuppance about it. It's just kind of like, oh, that's so sick or disgusting, and we just kind of move on. But that's a society we're living in, much like during slavery in this country. It's part of our culture that to look at that issue and say, this is disgusting, wrong, we shouldn't have any part of it. Like, people are like, whoa, wait a minute, you're radical. Mm-hmm. I'm actually like, I think that's where we're called to be. Now, go ahead.
Has the church said that people are permitted to take the vaccines if they want to because of the direness of the situation? Is that
that's the key point, is that the USCCB in their document said this reaches the level by which we can say it's morally licit. So if you say it's morally licit, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's right, but that's morally permissible to do, and you're not sinning if you do it because of the seriousness of the situation that we're in, with how many number of people dying, so on and so forth.
In the YouTube chat, Kevin on the drums says, even if the person is dead, experimenting on them goes against their human dignity. Same with aborted babies.
Well, and again, that's again, my understanding was, and I'm not sure if you have it in the documents there, is that again the church has said that because of the direness of the situation, it is licit for people to receive the vaccine, and so if that's what your conscience tells you to do, then do it. But it also was included in that we should be making our voices heard and saying we're not okay with that. Mm-hmm. Like, we shouldn't be letting this normalize some of the originations of these vaccines. And so, again, even if you are getting the vaccine, you need to add your voice to saying to those companies that, hey, we're not going to accept this undignity, this travesty against the dignity of human life.
Yeah, the final 2 points I would make on that is that, one, I mean, we're actually required, we're morally obligated, and this is where I feel like we've fallen flat as a church to like actually go directly to the company and say to the company, like, if we do get the vaccine, like, please do not do this. Let our dissent be made known. Don't develop vaccines in this manner. I mean, how many Catholics have you heard are actually doing that, right? So that's one. The second thing is, back to Rob's point, which I think is a really important one. Like, as much as I want to, and I was in a meeting today at work, and I'm just like, let's just mandate that people pray. Like, they have to come, and pray. If you're going to work for our organization, which is a Catholic one, you should pray. But it's like the conscience in Catholic teaching is so sacred. Was it Newman called it like the vicar of Christ? Like, the conscience is so sacred.
A person is morally required to obey his or her sure conscience, even if it errs.
Even if it errs.
That's a strong statement there, church.
So that's, I think, bringing it back to like how important it is that we do form our conscience, that we do take time to study, to research as best we can, and not just accept what the experts say, and really take that time to make sure that we're studying and understanding these issues as best we can.
And again, praying for other individuals that may disagree with us, see it differently, see the data differently, interpret the data differently. People who we continue to encourage them to inform their conscience, and we try to help with that formation, just as we welcome our own formation. But then we also do have to get to a place where we accept if that person in their conscience has chosen differently on voting or on the vaccine, we need to pray for them and give them to God, and not let that turn to browbeating them, or demonizing them or vilifying them and contributing to the polarization of the country. Because again,
maybe with the exception of if there's scandal, right? Like if I run into Joe Biden on an elevator, President Joe Biden, and I know where he stands. Right. And he's the leader of the free world.
Well, it's a discernment as to, again, when is a person really clear in their conscience, and that's an example where it's just so obvious out in front of everybody, where you're saying this but you're doing this. Right. I mean, as you've pointed out, Pete, like that's just such an obvious scandal, an obvious. It just doesn't match up. Whereas it's a little different again with I think even with the voting stuff, where because of the difficulty of all that information, like I can understand how a family member could come to very different conclusions than me on some of the votes that we've had in my lifetime. Like I can understand that there's just a lot of multiplicity, a lot of murkiness there. But I think in that example that you guys gave, I mean, there's just an obvious scandal there of saying one thing, and then obviously doing and saying something that is completely contradictory to it.
Yeah. So we have less than 10 minutes. We have 8 minutes left on this topic.
Okay.
And so with this remaining 8 minutes, let's talk about the mandate portion of this.
Right.
So viewers, listeners, if you want to share with us in the comments, whether you're watching now in the live stream or in the recording afterwards, share with us, maybe you are an employee of an employer that has 100 or more employees, and you are one of those 100 or more, and you are faced with a decision maybe that you weren't expecting to have to make. For some people, it could literally mean getting the vaccine or getting fired, or getting tested once a week. And so I'm curious for you guys to share with us in the comments, how do you feel about that, and how do you think you're going to find yourself responding to that? And if we could kind of talk here, like how should we approach this? I talked to someone, Al Caperna, yesterday, who runs a lot of businesses in Northwest Ohio and across the country, actually. And he's taking a ton of legal action right now hours after the announcements were made last night. He was already like,
go get him, Al.
He had a legal team getting ready. And but anyways, what do you guys think? How do we deal with this? How does the diocese dealing with this, and how is all of that?
I'm not that high up on the food chain, but I do think, one issue here is like the enforcement of this. How does the government even enforce that? So they've talked about a $14,000 fine for every. That would put a business out of business if you do that to certain individuals. So that's one piece. Like, how do you ever even enforce this? And it makes me think almost like even President Biden's speech the other night that he gave to announce this, it didn't seem to be a speech that was attempting to convince people to actually get the vaccine, but more playing to like the base of people who are vaccinated who want the unvaccinated to get vaccinated. Like he looks into the camera, he's like, What are you waiting for? It's like, well, there's a lot of things that I'm waiting for.
The vaccinated, didn't he say that the vaccinated need to be kept safe from the unvaccinated?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're kind of like,
isn't that what the vaccine
I thought
does?
the vaccine was supposed to do that. Sorry, just.
By the way, Mike Tenney says he misses us.
Oh, I love you, Mike.
We miss you, Mike.
Mike, we'll get Mike back here soon.
Yeah, as you were.
No, I don't even remember what I was going to say.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think.
Well, the vibe, right? Like the vibe in his presentation was just so hostile, and it was not, hey team, hey country, let's rally around this and figure this out. It was like there are two different sides, and you are on one of those sides. There are those who are in and those who are out. Which one are you? We're going to war with each other. Like that's how that felt to me.
Right. Yeah. So I don't think you're going to be able to enforce it. Number one, which is a challenge, but number two, I think it violates. The rights of business owners to make decisions for their business, that they want to make what's best for their employees and stuff. So there's like an issue of subsidiarity as well. It's like the federal government is coming in and telling individuals, you must do this, or you could potentially, lose your job. Now, I haven't taken one of the COVID tests before.
Can I throw this out there? What's the distinction between that and OSHA? Because I do feel like OSHA requires us to do things in the workplace. Everybody. Mm-hmm. And there are fines associated with different things that could happen. And there is a sense I have of overreach too far, but like, I guess it's a difficult thing for me to pinpoint, like, how to define that. Where's that line? Because we do have things like this. But this is like,
like wear pants.
I got to imagine when like,
we never answered the pants question. I mean, that's kind of,
right. But I got to imagine like when something like maybe the seatbelt law came into place, I got to imagine there was a gradual adoption of this law over time. It wasn't like everyone was vigilant. I don't know. There's just something about the atmosphere that makes this incredibly difficult. In a sense, it seems violating.
That was a perfect entry point there for you, Rob, because someone had just said in the chat that they wanted to know what you thought about this. And they also said that we need more whiskey. We need whiskey at all. We actually, this is the first men's show I've ever not had whiskey for, and I'm so sorry, boys. So if someone is local and watching this live stream and wants to bring us some whiskey.
Oh, we actually don't have whiskey.
We literally don't
have
whiskey.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
I know. So if you want to bring us some whiskey, shoot an email to info@awakencatholic.org to get the information about how to get it to us.
I mean, this is kind of the fundamental problem with men's nights is that men are planning them.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I guess, even to back up a little, to share my position, because it is a little different. I did get vaccinated.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I have. I think
I'm out of here.
Oh my gosh.
That's hilarious, Pete. Hilarious.
Rob is not amused.
But I guess, for me, like, I was resistant for a long time. I know, like, we had some, I was looking at potentially traveling outside of the country later in the year, which may be required or at least facilitated by getting the vaccine. And it really stood to me as a wager in my mind of like, do I know that it's effective and it's really helping people? And I'm like, there's so much out there, there probably are less deaths. The value for someone of my age and health, it seems kind of uncertain to me.
Right.
And then the other side is like, well, I'm not really, there's the idea that the vaccine is like a bad thing. It's killing people. We need to test it more. To me, like that, it's hard for me to see that and say, maybe that's overstated or it's a remote possibility similar to getting COVID and dying. And I'm not particularly concerned, what comes there. I'm willing to accept ill outcome from COVID or the vaccine. I won't seek it. But, I just took a wager and I just felt like getting the vaccine didn't seem to me to be a great ill. And I wasn't certain that it was good. Maybe there's a minute good that's achieved by it, for someone of my age, understanding the spread and like everything I've read. Again, that's not bringing into the whole, cell line topic.
Yeah. Well, and at least one of the goods is that you informed your conscience and you thought and prayed through it, and then you made a choice.
And I still made that choice, and not with complete certainty.
Yeah, well, we never have complete certainty, but I would say that's a virtuous choice that you made because in terms of the process, like that's.
But I would say like Rob, just like anyone around this table, like there's a level of education I think we should do, and there's a level of certainty that we should try to achieve before we make a moral decision, whatever that moral decision might be. So, like, just if you went around, and I'm not saying you did this,
hold on.
If you went, just based upon, like, okay, the government said it was okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go do it. I would say, well, that's a malformed conscience when it comes to making this particular decision. But if you spend some time researching and you form your conscience looking at what the church had to say about it and listening to what the church had to say, and you're like, yeah, this is the decision that I think is right and moral and good, I think that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, but a great many people in the church have said they've encouraged it, and I'm like, maybe I'm not personally someone who's going to go and encourage it for other people, or like, certainly I don't want anyone to be mandated to do it.
Yeah.
But it's certainly they've encouraged and said it's morally acceptable. Leaders in our church, and I'm also not the type of person to like overly hem and haw about something for a long time. Like I have to weigh things and move forward. And for me, I was comfortable getting the vaccine.
And that's you across the board, regardless of the topic. Like, you like to do what you can to educate yourself, make a decision, and move on. You don't want to just get stuck in this like vortex of, right? Is that?
Yeah, and I think there is some people have a tendency to like be so uncertain about a thing for so long, to wrestle with it forever and to never do anything.
Yeah, because the proper amount of wrestling, the proper amount of research, that too is a matter of conscience. Because you can't.
Whoa, wait a minute. Okay, go ahead. You gotta finish it down.
How many? 5 hours?
How do you know when you're
10
done?
hours?
How do you know when you're
Let me
done?
20
start over.
hours?
Let me start
Hold
over.
on.
50 hours? 100
hours.
Bear with me.
500.
7,500 hours. I mean, that too is a matter of prudential judgment and conscience. Like you have to have a good.
No, he says no.
I'm biting. I'm just shaking my
So
head.
I've
'cause I'm
seen
like,
live stream like from other YouTube channels and stuff where it's grouped like this, and they have like systems where the people watching can like vote on who's winning, and I think we need to incorporate that.
Pete, how do you know when you're done?
It's not about
researching?
winning. It's
How
not
do you
about
know
winning.
when you've researched a topic enough?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think that should be our next topic. Like looking at. No, I think we could dive into this quite a bit.
That is its
because
own
You know it for
Because I
somebody
think-
else.
I think yeah. In a
Can you
general sense,
determine
yeah.
how many hours should I have studied?
Hold on. Yeah, when you go to school, you're in a college classroom and you're learning a subject. Okay, it's not good enough just to pick up and read the first page of the book. Okay, you should read the book if you're going to actually be able to articulate and talk about what the book is about.
You're speaking
so there are some baseline. Hold on, let me finish.
A
There
B
are
minus student.
There are some baseline requirements I think we have if we're taking a class about a particular book. If you're reading C.S. Lewis or something, like you should read the book, you should read about who C.S. Lewis is. So there are some baseline things we should expect. And then especially if you're talking about a moral decision, what you're injecting into your body, I would hope that we would approach it from a sense of like, I'm not just going to research for 1 minute versus say an hour. Like I would say objectively that researching for an hour is better than researching for 1 minute on for a vaccine. Do you agree or disagree?
But do you agree that 100 hours is better than 2 hours, and 1,000 hours is better than 100 hours, and 1,000,000 hours is better than 1,000 hours?
Yeah.
No. Pete, you're wrong. You're wrong, brother. Because
Wow. All right.
brother, you would have no time to pray. You would have no time to take care of your family. You'd have no time to do your job. You'd have no time to eat or sleep if you spent 1,000,000 hours researching.
I got a lot of other things to do.
No, like God's
Getting warm
called
in
you to
here.
other things. You'll never get to the end of that. If more is always just simply better, then you'll never get to the end of it.
Okay, so yeah, I said that in jest to say like because you're going on this rant, but you didn't answer my question. Like, is it better versus an hour versus 1 minute? And I think you can't research a topic like this in 1 minute.
Well, sure.
An
Well,
hour
did any
would
of
be
us ever say that,
objectively
though?
better. You didn't answer the question, so you just answered. You said sure, so that's good. At least we can establish now some baseline.
Okay.
So we would
Well,
say
we gotta vote for
at least an hour would be better than 1 minute. Okay,
sounds good.
So maybe 1,000,000 hours isn't as efficacious as
Agreed.
if you do it for 20 or something based upon your state in life.
Sure.
But can't we all say that there is a fundamental basis we have to it's very much Catholic Church teaching. We have a fundamental duty to form our conscience.
Absolutely.
We can't abdicate that duty and just say, well, I'm just going to make the decision because the authorities told me to do it,
And
or
you're-
because the church said to do it. Like
But
we have
who
a,
said
do you have a
duty.
presumption that I have said that and done that?
No,
simply?
I said this in the beginning that when we were talking about like you have a duty to form your conscience. And if you did it in such a way where you just kind of accepted whatever the government was saying and you just looked
I've
at the church and
certainly
you just said,
weighed what everybody was saying.
that's perfect. And I said, if you did that, then that's a good moral decision. But if you didn't do it, then it's a bad moral decision.
Well, how does he know if he's done though?
yeah.
How did he?
When did I get to that point?
How
If I
does he
could
know
interject,
that he can be done?
So we have a single vote so far, which I didn't explicitly ask for these, but here it is for Rob. So
I just vote for Rob across
but
the board.
what I wanted
with
to-
no research, I just univocally
gosh.
vote for Rob. on all things.
But what I wanted to interject with is what comes to mind for me is to connect this question to the discernment for your vocation to marry or become a priest or whatever. Like if you're discerning, if you're in a relationship with someone or you're thinking about courting with someone for marriage, like you're discerning that there is literally never a point at which you could be with that person for 10 years before you finally pop the question and you still don't know that it's the right choice. You have to do your best, right? And you could be with a person for 3 months and you you might know just as much as that other person after 10 years that this is the right person. Like, ideally, you don't wait 10 years, which is, I think, Rob's point. And ideally, you don't wait, or you don't just jump the gun after 3 months, which is Pete's point.
Right.
But the thing is that every marriage and every discernment process for that vocation looks totally different, which is John Mark's point. And I think that is where we can all just kind of sing Kumbaya together. And if I could get a vote from someone for that one, I'd appreciate it.
You got it.
Thank you,
My
Rob.
vote. Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay, guys, we did it. We went a little over time on that, but only by 5 minutes, so I'm proud of us.
In a neat little town they called Belfast, apprentice to trade I was bound. Nick, you gotta sing this with me.
I'm trying.
And many an hour of sweet happiness I spent in that neat little town, till bad misfortune came o'er me, that caused me to stray from the land. Far away from me friends and relations, to follow the black velvet band. Her eyes, they shone like diamonds, you'd think she was queen of the land. And her hair hung over her shoulders, tied up with a black velvet band. To our wonderful patrons, here
Here,
is
here.
to you, to your health.
Cheers.
Blessings of the patrons. You don't
Yes,
have anything.
cheers.
I know. I need to fix that.
We
I'm
only
about
have
to fix that.
the problem here.
Yes.
We're drinking water. It's all we could afford.
Listen,
because of our patron
don't-
level. For as little as $100 a month.
Oh my gosh.
You
This
could
glass-
get us green label, prime shelf alcohol.
So, check out themenshow.com and please join our patron community. The League of Ordinary Gentlemen and Ladies are invited too.